What hobby will you never understand? My dad collects junk. He goes to estate and garage sales to spend money on things he doesn't want, need, or intends to use. His house is just full of unrelated knickknacks. They pile up on shelves, in closets, in boxes. He even bought 2 storage buildings last year to accommodate the amount of overflowing crap. He knows he won't ever touch the stuff and that it's all worthless, but he can't go anywhere with junk and just not buy something. Here's a good example. Last year he went to the drugstore and bought me the cheapest, shittiest Halloween mask I've ever seen. It was 2-3 weeks after Halloween. And I'm 36. I told him that I can't handle storing any more of his junk and that he should take it with him. He said he thought I would like it. Why? Well, it was on sale, so I bought it. He says it's a hobby, but I think it's a mental disorder. He's getting little dopamine spikes when he thinks about buying junk, and when he buys junk he's legit getting a tiny high. This is an obsessive behavior that can lead to hoarding, which it sounds like your father has already surpassed what qualifies. My only thought is that you will have to go through all his old shit when he moves on from this world. Maybe get a head start if you can on at least organizing things. Also, it's important to note it can be very dangerous because of inert gas buildup, especially in old mine shafts. You can die just by walking in one, and the inert gases displace the oxygen, so even though you are still breathing normally you aren't getting oxygen, so you pass out and die. Not to mention sudden, massive drops in mines if you are exploring an exhaust route. Yeah, just don't go in abandoned mines without oxygen, good light, and a body. I love exploring caves. I've only ever done so with a guide, but I've been to 6 major cave systems in Australia and 3 in New Zealand. They're just so cool. I love all the funky rock formations. A good guide will tell you all about the history of the cave system, and it's so interesting to hear about how the first people to do so explored them. Spoiler alert. It's usually just them wandering around underground with a candle. They usually also have some information on how they engineered all the pathways etc. down there. It's a really niche kind of local history. I would love to do some actual spelunking. However, I'm also aware it's dangerous, and I have enough dangerous hobbies as it is. It started with a very sincere motive, to give lonely people company when eating breakfast/lunch/dinner, because in many cultures eating is supposed to be a social event. But like all things, YouTube eventually turned it into a fucking nightmare show. There's a channel out there, can't remember the name, where the guy starts off at an average weight and you literally watch him become morbidly obese over the course of just a couple of years. It's horrifying and saddening. One Christmas, my mom bought my then 2-year-old daughter a porcelain doll as a present. Creepiest fucking doll I'd ever seen. My daughter didn't want to take it home, so we kindly asked mom to leave it at hers so that our daughter had something to play with when she was over there. One day our daughter went over, saw it and started crying. My dad, who was looking after her at the time, decided to smash it and told mom that it had fallen off the mantle by accident when a truck had gone past the house. Hi, I'm actually getting into doll collecting, and the spooky factor is a big fact of it. I don't believe in ghosts or anything, but the idea of people coming over and discovering a room full of dolls and being freaked sounds so funny to me, so I'm a big fan. Other than that, even the purposefully scary ones, cracked/fake blood on them or hanging, I don't find frightening. I think they're neat to look at. I go over to my neighbor's home to take her dog with mine ever since she broke her foot. Practically every single time I'm there, there is something new. Usually some useless decorative knick-knack from Target, but sometimes a new set of curtains. Yesterday it was a new entrance table and mirror by the front door. Brand new plates last week because they are so summery. Even though I know she got new plates for herself at Christmas, she says she wants to do a full remodel of her guest bathroom that she updated less than 5 years ago, by the end of this year. But I'm like, why? It's all still new. Still looks like it came out of a Pottery Barn lookbook. Isn't all of this exhausting, not to mention expensive? child beauty pageants, more specifically people who have the borderline pedophilic idea that they need to force their 5-year-old to get all dressed up and go on stage to be gawked at by a bunch of old men and feel no sense of disgust with their own exploitative use of their kid that could have had a more respectable talent that they actually chose to do. Maybe I just don't get it, but there's something slightly menacing about the whole practice. I felt this way. That being said, my daughter has competed in a few. However, we only do them through one group and they are natural, meaning no makeup allowed, only pageant dresses, and only parents are allowed to attend. My daughter loves them. She gets to spend time with her friends doing something she enjoys. They have a huge dance party with snacks afterwards. And it makes her feel special because she is the center of mine and her mother's attention for an entire afternoon while the other children get babysat. If she ever told me she didn't want to do them anymore, we have made it clear she is welcome to quit them anytime. I feel this way about child actors. Just the stuff we now know about what child actors' lives are like, the people they are exposed to, sometimes literally, and what adulthood will mean for them. I don't understand why any parent is like, yup, sounds good, doing like the school play and the yearly community theater is fine and wonderful, but going around looking for agents, taking your kid out of school to audition for commercials, and trying to make sure Lil Susie, age 7, gets on a Disney Plus show is fucking weird, and I question your parenting. This coming from a hobby filmmaker. I see posts all the time on the filmmaking boards about parents wondering how to get their kids into the industry, and I always just want to say don't. I had a fun encounter with a drunk lad on record store day where this came up. We're all lined up waiting at around 4 a.m. when he and his mates come up, fresh out the club, to ask what the line was about. We tell him and he say I don't get why people would line up for a record, to which his mate looked at him and went, well, you line up for trainers, don't you? Do you ever hum or sing to yourself absent-mindedly and whoever you're with tells you to shut up? It's not annoying to you because it's you that's causing the noise, but to other people it's annoying. I think the loud vehicle thing is similar. Same when idiots are driving with all the windows open blasting their shit music for everyone to hear. Not knocking anyone's hobby. Enjoy what you enjoy, just don't force it down everyone else's throat. I used to work at a place that sold them, and while I do have a few of my own and can understand collectors who focus on 1 or 2 franchises, like Harry Potter or Marvel, I have never and will never understand extreme collectors. The ones who made me go up to our inventory shelves to show them 26 different versions of the same pop because the ones on the lower shelves had dime-sized dents in their little windows or closed with a 22mm gap between the box and lid, or the ones who buy them just to have them, not because they like that specific franchise. I swear, they made that ad icon line just to sell more. Nobody wants them. One guy came in and bought $700 worth of pops just to collect, not because he enjoyed them. So many kids lamenting about how they released new ones. Oh no, they can't afford the new line, not to mention the chases. Like, guys, you will never be able to keep up with what they release. Stop wasting your money. There's 2 types of people that spend money to make a vehicle loud. The first type that spends a ton of money, the noise is a byproduct. These people are spending money to make their vehicle faster. It's a ton of money, and a complete waste of money, but for those that do it, nothing makes them happier. For an engine to make more power, you need to move more air, faster. This means larger diameter intakes and exhaust. This air makes noise, even with mufflers, high flow to not rob horsepower. The cars become louder. The second type doesn't spend a ton of money, and they are the ones that do it for the attention, in person and online. They are usually the obnoxious type. They do it to make the car really, really loud. Spend a couple $100 at the muffler shop to straight pipe a car, and then $500 with a tuner for that crackle tune. The crackle tune is making the car backfire whenever it is not accelerating. Sometimes confused for fireworks or gunfire by non-car people, aka the general public. Cars nowadays are tuned to do this, and nothing else, not make an ounce of more power. Even the first type people hate this second type. They make being a car enthusiast harder because the general public can't tell a difference between these two types of car enthusiasts and just lump us all in with the second because they are and hear them much more often. My evidence is me getting annoyed every time the Civic's down the street with a crackle tune drive by, while having a car in my driveway with an exhaust that made my car slightly louder than stock, but have owned cars that can be heard from a mile away because they were heavily modified and went to the racetrack. I actually don't understand my own hobby, collecting video games. You can play most any game on a modern console in some way or on Steam. And this doesn't even touch on other methods of playing games. This is way easier than playing games on old hardware. There is the nostalgia factor, but the amount of work to keep old games running is insane. Something is always breaking, and it's only getting worse as the consoles age more. For the amount of time I spend fixing games and cleaning games so they actually work, I could be playing them easily through another method. My husband has a pretty solid game collection. His Saturn died a couple of years ago and it's been impossible to find a functional one, which is especially annoying as he just bought a couple semi-rare games when it died, so he hasn't even gotten to play them. But the nostalgia is a big thing for him. He's been gaming for years and doesn't really like the modern online PC gaming scene, so he mostly plays older stuff. And I get to enjoy it too because I didn't grow up with game consoles. We play together and it's really fun. I collect money from around the world currency, because I find it interesting. I think it's pretty cool to collect money from every country, coins/banknotes. I learned so much about different aspects of these other countries I'd never know. I let my wife take my collect to her 6th grade social studies class on the last week of school and let her students from other classrooms look at it. The kids who are from other countries love pointing out, "Hey, I know that. That's money from where I lived." I also like collecting money from around the WEI period as well as other wars, hyperinflation money, getting your hands on $10 trillion banknote from Zimbabwe, money from countries who have dissolved or changed, Soviet Union, Yugoslavia, or Hong Kong before China's rule. As someone who collects a lot, it's at least partly a compulsion, but a lot of it is the satisfaction of filling gaps or completing things. People are fascinated by my shelves and shelves of music, movies, comics, action figures, and Lego. I like the aesthetic of these full, overwhelming shelves of books and such. They make for a nice background and conversation starter in my work-from-home meetings these days, too. I got a surprising amount of attention here once when I randomly mentioned my collection of 200+ band t-shirts, but I think I can pretty readily understand why someone would just not get it, as I don't get some other collections. Most people do it as a form of gambling. A friend and I used to go every once in a while just to get out and chat while having a slim chance of winning. Old ladies would be set up with 5 cards and 3 computers and glaring at us for making noise because it's not a game to them. It's fun if you're just goofing off and seeing if you get lucky. But I don't understand the ladies that go every day and spend $200 a day just for a chance to win $100, $500. Depends on the type of trolling. If you're just saying racist shit to piss people off, that's pathetic. But then you have the master trolls, like Ken M. For those who don't know, go check out our Ken. Ken is a master troll. He takes on the persona of a dim-witted elderly man and goes on to toxic message boards like Yahoo. He'll then post innocent but stupid comments and let people just explode. People get way too worked up over really dumb innocent stuff and it's totally hilarious. Chances are you've seen a few memes based on his work without even realizing it. It's a mix of social gathering, a good game, lots of laughs, some drama and a pinch of luck. Provided you got a good group and not a bunch of mistakes who need to really get their act together. There is the famous saying, playing no D&D is better than playing bad D&D for a reason. Also, I believe most people who start D&D and claim they'll be boring can see something interesting and refine it. You can also be uninterested, which is okay as long as you don't make other people's playtime miserable, and probably leave the group in amicable terms. Point is, I wouldn't say no so fast. You got online games, games in one's living room, and game shops providing a place to stay if you got them in your city/town/wherever you live. Feel free to check the internet too, maybe you'll find a group there. If you've ever played a game like Dragon Age, Mass Effect, or Fallout, that's basically sci-fi themed computer simulated D&D, and games like Baldur's Gate are even closer to computer simulated D&D, but this is done with friends and a person can be a dungeon master instead of having a computer do it. This way literally anything the dungeon master can think of is allowed to happen according to the rules of the game instead of only what the game was built to do. And you get to socialize with friends, but you have to use your imagination instead of having the game render everything for you. I had this conversation very recently with my dad. I think it comes down to two major bullet points that don't click for outsiders. First, even by default the whole system is really designed to give you a fair and systematic way to do anything. If you layer on homebrew, which is the process of making your own systems to put on top of, instead of the default rules, this expands even more. Do you want to fish? You could set up a whole chart system with local species, lure types, time of day, weather as a modifier, and finally get to the point where every 5 minutes of game time you roll dice. 1-4 you catch nothing that time, 5-18 you catch one fish, 19 or 20 you catch a different fish. Second, it's not all combat. Imagine the Council of Elrond scene from Lord of the Rings. The Fellowship are all players, and the rest of the Council, including Elrond, are just characters the person running the game controls. When Boromir makes his pitch, the DM has him roll some dice to resist the temptation. He's driven only by power, to protect, and thus is weak against corruption that promises him power, so it goes poorly. Boromir fails and starts to get overtaken. The wizard, Gandalf, rolls some dice to save him with the spell, and because he knows a lot about the corruption it's easier for him to succeed. Then we get a little backstory on the Aragorn character, and they go back to discussing the next steps for what the group wants. In theory a luckier roll from Boromir and he'd have resisted it by himself, like Frodo does later a few times, or an unlucky roll from Gandalf and Gandalf can't protect Boromir after corruption starts. Presumably if no one saved Boromir from corruption, the DM would have stepped in and had Elrond save him, but at some random cost to the group, fewer supplies later on as they left, etc. Or he'd have to put Boromir into a purifying sleep and send the players out for some flour to properly save him, likely sending a guide along that could be controlled by the person playing Boromir in the meantime, thus giving the group some direction, task, but also there is some consequence, weight to the interaction. Similarly, when Boromir the character dies in the big fight, shortly after the person playing as Boromir rejoins the game, now playing as Omar, a different, largely the same human male with a martial-type character build. Lawn care. I'd rather have a forested backyard with ferns and shit, or a big multi-layered garden, rather than have a whole empty stretch of grass like you see in some backyards. Edit. I don't think I made myself clear. I'm not ragging on people who take basic care of their lawns. Hell, even I do it to keep ticks away. It's not personally preferred, but in the US we're stuck with swaths of grass. I'm talking about the people who manicure their lawns and put fancy patterns in it. The ones who get fancy rideable mowers and are super into mowing their lawns. When I see yards like this or this I don't think, wow, what a nice backyard. I instead think about all the habitat and local flora that had to be bulldozed to make all that wasted space. Not to mention the water issues these things bring. And even then, large swaths of just grass are visually uninviting for me. I don't want to hang out in these spaces. Now, if there were some raised flower beds for a garden, some bird feeders and baths, or some mature trees to sit under, then the space actually feels alive and comfy. I'm not a huge rail fan like some people are, but I do enjoy trains, and usually at night I'll have a game on my PC on one screen and a live cam from Virtual Railfan up on the other watching a stream of a track. One location in Missouri recently had a Railfan weekend where people from all over the country showed up to watch trains, record trains, meet each other and so on. from my time watching this last year has taught me a lot. People get excited over freight trains because it may have a couple of DPUs, dispersed power unit, and the train may be long. It could be carrying interesting cargo like wind turbine blades or military tanks or APCs. The engines may be a rare unit or even from a paint scheme that isn't used anymore. I've seen a BNSF train that also has a Kansas City Southern unit, or you may see a Union Pacific train using the line. My favorite camera has Amtrak stopping by twice per day, one each direction. I've seen an engine with a traction motor on fire live on camera, and I've watched track repairs be completed. It's really interesting, at least here in the US. There is a YouTuber who does videos that lives somewhat near me and his highlights things around me that I never knew existed. I was the same. It doesn't make a ton of sense because it seems like the same trains, time after time, but it isn't similar to bird watching. You may see a ton of robins and cardinals, but eventually you will see something rare.